You're right, Claire. Like I mentioned in my opening remarks, there is no region in the country at the moment where insecurity is ravaging like the Northwest. When we did in Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited, we did our monthly report for May 2024. 6 of the local governments that were the highest local governments that were affected by both fatalities and abductions were in the northwest of the country. In the past, it used to be northeast, but gradually we're seeing a shift to the northwest of the country. So the challenges are germane. They are issues that need to be dealt with. And interestingly, which ties into your question, the northwest is essentially homogeneous. Essentially, both in terms of its religious profile and then to an extent, even its ethnic profile. Essentially, of course, there are Christians, but predominantly the majority of the population in the Northwest are Muslims. So it would appear to the ordinary observer that because of this homogeneity, it will be very easy for unity of purpose and then for joint action, collaboration to address the security challenges. But so much has happened in the past that has led us to where we are. As an example, the collapse of the justice system, both the traditional justice system and then the more conventional justice system. For each of the security challenges, whether it's banditry, or it's farmer-herder violence, or it's kidnap for ransom, the failure of the justice system, both forms of justice system, to address the early signals, the early indicators of those security challenges have led to the monster that we are at the moment. Second point is climate change and its consequences, desertification in particular, and then several other components that are associated with climate change and the inability of, unfortunately, both levels of government, federal, state, and to an extent local government, to introduce adaptation measures to reduce the consequences of those climate change. I mean, I can pick all the security challenges and try to relate it to how climate change has exacerbated the challenge, but time would not allow me to do that. Third point is the proliferation of small arms and light weapons. All the security challenges, again, I can pick them one after the other and show you the positive correlation between those security challenges and then the proliferation of small arms and light weapons. Now, associated with that is the porosity of our borders, especially in the Northwest. For almost all the states in the Northwest, almost all of them actually have borderlines with neighboring countries. And sadly, like it was revealed yesterday by one of the speakers, most of the formal border points as well as informal border points in the northern part of the country are not protected. So there is free flow of both material, transhumans, and humans across the border into those states that are contributing to those security challenges. Drug proliferation and addiction is also another challenge. The collapse of the value system, that is also very unfortunately prominent. And in that regard, the family system, there is a cultural, I would say, deficiency in the Northwest that unfortunately in some cultural communities within the Northwest where the family system is collapsing increasingly. The father wakes up in the morning, does not care how his kids feed, and goes out and leaves the mother in most instances to feed. And then the other side of this is the effect that the security challenge is having on families. Fathers have been killed. In some instances, mothers have also been killed. Orphans are there. Nobody is tendering to them. The state government are doing their lot. But it was revealed yesterday that the number of IDPs, displaced persons, in Nigeria, not the ones that have become refugees in Niger and other parts of the West African sub-region, are about 600,000. And this is, I think, the most conservative estimate. In my opinion, there are even more than that. So these are some of the reasons why the Northwest has been unable to address its security challenges. So of course, there are others, including these harmonious approaches by the various state governments. Not too long ago, I'm not talking of the current crop of governors, but before then, some governors attempted to, placate, I'm using this word loosely, the bad guys, the bandits, the kidnappers, the organized criminals, offered amnesty to them. In fact, some of them even went ahead into the forest, took pictures with them, and it was a massive failure. Why was it a failure? The DDRR program that we know, every security expert will tell you, it's an institutionalized process, and I'm very happy it came up during the discussion yesterday. For governors to engage in it, they have to follow that institutionalized process. And it's interesting, and that's why I mentioned that I'm very delighted that the UN is part of this summit, because that program is largely driven by the UN. And if the governors decide that that is the route they want to take, I'm hoping that the UN will also support them in that regard. They can't just go into it without following the various processes that would allow for success. So now that this new crop of governors have agreed to work together and collaborate among themselves, we are hoping, like I said at the beginning, that a framework will come out that will now allow each and every one of them to key into, driven by the federal government. Let's not forget that as at today, security still remains within the exclusive list. So the federal government is taking the front. And again, like you cited in your earlier remarks, the vice president was there. He confirmed the commitment of the federal government to support whatever initiative comes out of it. The representative of the National Security Advisor was there as the coordinator of security within the current security architecture. Of course, the military, the armed forces of Nigeria was represented. The NIA DG was there. The representative of the DGSSS was there. So I'm quite optimistic that at the end of this, if that framework comes out, all of these challenges that I've identified, which have come up during the conversations and will come up today, in the framework that will come out, solutions to them will be identified. I would close by saying that we need to disaggregate the security challenges. They are varied. When you are talking of banditry and talking of farmer-herder violence, they are very different. And if you do not approach it like that, with each and everyone having its own solution in a framework that brings everybody together, especially the community buy-in that has been discussed earlier by some of the conversations, then sadly we will not address this challenge. But I'm quite happy that this is what is being done.